Hey everyone, Cerebral Tackle back with you again today. As I promised, there's a part 2 to this whole Keith Poche fiasco. You're not going to want to miss this. I've got new information. I talked to a couple people with a lot of knowledge into this specific event, so you're going to want to see this. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and let's do this. A real quick heads up. Towards the end of this video, I'm going to post a few comments that folks left in the comment section from my last video. Ones that I want to address personally. You're going to want to stick around for that too. It's been brought up by some people that I have a bias towards Keith Poche. I don't. However, if you are a Keith Poche fanboy, I suggest you laminate that poster on the wall right now, because this could get messy. I talked with two people today that have very close ties with this incident. One, a wonderful gentleman that works for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. His name is Bob Baker. Bob is actually in charge of the North Toledo Bend Wildlife Management Area. He's the dude in charge of the area of land in which this incident occurred. Now, the second person I spoke with is none other than Hank Weldon. He's the executive director of tournaments for bass. First, let's go over some of the things I learned from my conversation with Mr. Barker with the WMA. Toledo Bend Reservoir was impounded in 1969. The North Toledo Bend Wildlife Management Area wasn't built until 1987, when the land was deeded to Texas Parks and Wildlife from the Sabine River Authority to create this wildlife management area. Now, it was constructed in part by Ducks Unlimited. They're the folks who created this roller dam, if you will, that actually blocks off the 500-acre impoundment to be used for duck hunting here on this wildlife management area property. This 500-acre impoundment is a separate area. It's not created by water from the lake. It's created only by watershed. Ducks Unlimited got involved to build it as a 500-acre impoundment for waterfowl, for duck hunting. It's an enclosed area that they actually drain during the summer and let fill up during the winter to promote waterfowl habitat. Is it legal to fish in this area? Absolutely. Is it legal to gain access to this area by the way Keith Poche did it? Absolutely not. And we're going to go into that. Now see, from the comment section, I think a lot of folks don't exactly understand what this structure is that Keith Poche jumped. It's not an earthen dam. It has a roller ramp built across it, but it's a dam to keep water in this particular 500-acre impoundment. This isn't a sandbar, okay? It's not a tidal structure. It's not an earth pond dam. It's a 200 feet long by 50 foot wide concrete structure. Now, in the middle of this structure is the water control feature. It doesn't do what you think it does, and I'll get to that later. It's roughly 30 foot wide by 45 foot long. The roller ramp part of this dam is meant for smaller craft. It's not meant to be jumped. It's meant for smaller craft, for folks to put their boats up on, like smaller duck boats, flat bottoms, up onto it, and then drag it or push it across to the other side. Larger boats can get across with use of a winch, which is not legal in BASS. Either way you slice it, it's not meant to be jumped. Not the concrete end of it, and surely not the roller system. As the gentleman I talked to today said, you'd only do it once. This dam also works as a road for maintenance crews to get in and out of the area, and for maintenance on the water control system. So the only way to properly use this roller system is what the gentleman called good old-fashioned oomph, which means get out and push the boat across the roller system, or use of the winch to pull yourself across. Mr. Baker also said that this roller system takes a lot of abuse and is consistently missing rollers. He said it's even missing a few right now. So jumping something like that would be really freaking hard, if not impossible. And hitting that metal at full speed could really tear the crap out of your boat. From what it looks like on the video released by Keith Poche of him actually jumping the structure, it did not look like he hit the rollers. It looks like he went straight across the concrete. See, folks, everyone's kind of overcomplicating this issue. Stick with me. Remember, he was DQ'd under Rule 15, which is All tournament boats must remain in the tournament waters during tournament days. When I spoke with Mr. Weldon, I kind of get the idea they're pretty much cut and dried, finished with the situation. He referred me back to Rule 15 and said basically, read it carefully, the answer's right there, right? In addition, Miss Emily Harley, which is over communications with BASS, also referred me back to their statement. Guys, we're overcomplicating it. Now, there's a lot of people that are saying he did stay in tournament waters on tournament day. There's two caveats here that says, no, he really didn't. So let me show you what I mean. Now, see, some folks are using apples to oranges comparisons that it's the same thing as jumping a regular pond dam or tidal waters in a tidal area. Not the case. It's also not the case of a beaver dam or something like that. It's not. Let me explain why. First, this water control structure, it uses what is similarly referred to as stop logs on some river systems. Instead of big wooden planks, these are big sheets of aluminum. And what they do is they drop down kind of in a stacked door-like fashion on the other side of a drain. What that does is that allows water to pool up on the impelment side. Water only flows one direction. The fish don't exactly traverse back and forth between the two, guys. Water is filled up from the watershed into the impelment. And then in the summer, they drain it to allow for vegetation and growth, and then put the stop logs or these sheets of aluminum back in during the winter to fill it back up for the migratory birds. So water goes one way, it's not really shared back and forth. I also asked Mr. Baker whether the water ever floods up over the structure. He said it can happen, he's seen it, but it's rarely. It hardly ever happens. Why? Because as you can see in Poche's own video, when he crests that thing, the front of his boat is a good 2 feet off the water. So there's about a 2-foot elevation of concrete there. A nice slope, yes, but a 2-foot elevation of concrete between the top of that concrete dam there and the surface of the water. One of the viewers that brought up the comparison of tidal systems versus this situation was Edward Cohen. Now, if you don't know his name, do a little research. This gentleman is actually a 2-time Bassmasters Classic qualifier. Yeah, the man's got some skins on the walls. Other folks said it's no different than jumping a beaver dam or a small like little pond dam that's been flooded with the lake when the lake was built. Here's why that's not the case. Those are natural. Those are there. Those are part of the lake system, and they're not freaking concrete. It's not safe, it's not smart to jump a 200-foot long by 50-foot wide chunk of concrete. Your boat's really out of the freaking water at that point. We're not talking a skip and a jump over a tidal sandbar or a little push over a flooded pond dam. We're talking a 200-foot by 50-foot piece of concrete that is an established water control dam. Guys, it's apples to oranges. It is not the same. Another viewer, Pops and Yee's Adventures or some such, said, you don't got your facts straight. There's pipes and culverts and middle slats, buddy. Middle slats. The water is controlled to and from. Middle slats, open it up, flows through. They close them. That's it. Water does not go back and forth between the two. It's not like a culvert on some lakes where some boats actually can traverse from one side of the road to the other through a large culvert system. That ain't it. Pops and Yee's Adventures also busted out his YouTube law degree on us. He told us that if this went in front of a court, there's no way that Poche wouldn't win in a lawsuit. Wrong again. Do you know why? Because when Keith Poche signed his agreement to fish these tournaments with BASS Opens, he signed a form that saying he would abide by the decision of the tournament director in any circumstances in which they had to rule, and also by the appeal panel, which he appealed to and lost. Guess what? He signed away his right to win in any kind of a lawsuit. Wrong, into discussion. So you might want to look about getting a refund on that YouTube law degree. The situation's always been, if you don't like the rules, don't fish it. Because when you sign that dotted line, you agree to the tournament director's decision and any appeals process thereafter. That's it. That's what governs it. Don't like it, don't fish it. Another amusing comment was left by a viewer by the name of Brian Sosa. He said, if he wouldn't have posted about it, you wouldn't have known. There's a little thing called press releases that Bass churns out in situations like this for transparency. Wrong, dude. Sorry. The whole world was going to know. It's just that Poche wanted to make a bigger deal about it than it should have been. Another comment came from a viewer called 3-0 Farms. 3-0 Farms said, glad you are so objective. Doesn't sound like you are against Poche. You must have your resume in with Bass. Guess what? Been there, done that. I've already had the freelance contract with Bass. Did it years ago. Not doing it anymore. Sorry. Used to fish tournaments with them. Don't anymore. Sorry. Guess what? I'm not biased against Poche. I'm biased against folks that put other people in a bad position where they have to throw a penalty flag. Because as Gerald Swindle said in his video, which by the way, guys, check it out. Swindle had a great video on this subject. He said in his video that it puts other anglers in a bad position when someone breaks the rules. You know why? That code of conduct we talk about says that if you see a rule infraction, you have to report it. Because if you don't, you yourself can also be disqualified. So another angler puts you in a bad situation where you have to throw a penalty flag. Remember my story about the guy smoking pot and drinking booze on the water? That's an uncomfortable freaking position to be in. It's horrible. There's been another situation where a penalty flag had to be thrown. I didn't want to throw that one either. It's a horribly awkward and uncomfortable position to be in. You know what? I've ran tournaments when someone was disqualified as well. Guys, it's not fun. I don't recommend it. But I can tell by this person's comment that he's never fished a bass tournament, never had to run one, so he wouldn't know what it's like. Another hilarious comment came from Linhart254, who says, only 143 views and 13 likes so far? You are a minority on this one. I think he meant I'm in the minority. I mean, I haven't done a DNA test recently, but I think he meant I'm in the minority. Either way, if you look at the numbers, comment didn't age well, buddy. Either way, at the end of the day, here's Poche's problem. He did leave tournament waters. Why? He crossed a 200-foot long by 50-foot wide concrete pond dam meant for flood control. No, this is not a creek channel, not a tidal sandbar, not a beaver dam, not a log jam, not a hole cut through a freaking pond dam that's been flooded when the lake was built. No, a 200-foot by 50-foot concrete man-made structure. When his boat entered in to that impoundment via jumping that concrete structure, he entered the lake in a way that was leaving tournament waters. You don't have to like it. That's the rule. That's what happens. That's why he was DQ'd, and that's why the disqualification was upheld by the 3-person panel. So there you have it, folks. I know there's going to be a lot more of the Poche fanboys who are going to be mad at me, and I'm sorry. You're going to have to take the L on this one. It is what it is. And by the way, if I can call up Mr. Weldon and ask him a couple of questions as he's out of state preparing, setting up for a tournament, guess who else even has better contact with him? One of his own anglers from his very roster. So there's no excuses for not calling the tournament director. I know Poche said he didn't want to waste his time with it. Guess what? It's not wasting the tournament director's time. That's his job. And your responsibility as an angler under the rules for making that call. It is what it is. So guys, I hope the calls I was able to make today helps give you a better mental image as to what this structure looks like. Not exactly the best thing to be crossing, especially at speed. Like I said, we're talking concrete here. The fact that he left the water over a concrete man-made barrier as opposed to something natural, not a good idea. That's what landed him with the DQ. It is what it is. Like it or love it, hate it, there you go. I want to thank every single person for showing up and watching with me today. Again, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you for being here. It does mean the world to me. So until next time we meet, do me a favor. Get your tournament stuff together. Call the tournament director. Don't go all motocross on freaking concrete dams. Get out there. Keep it wet.